In this module, we're going to review how to play Grudge Ball. Grudge Ball is a review game that appears several times throughout the curriculum. Here we're going to look at game setup, how you score the game, how to play the game, and how to make adaptations to the game so it's best for your classroom. Before I go into details of how to set up the game and materials that you need to set up the game, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Kara Wilkins. She's the teacher that came up with this game. You can find details about how she came up with the game and how she does it in her classroom on her blog, which is linked to right here. She also has action shots of her students playing the game. To set up the game in your classroom, you're going to need a couple of basic supplies. Basketball hoop, you can use a Nerf hoop, one of the ones that you can attach to your whiteboard. Or we use a trash can, which works just fine. You're going to need a Nerf ball, or we use a crumpled piece of paper if I've forgotten the ball. You're also going to need 2 pieces of tape to create the 2-point and 3-point lines, and this will make more sense in a minute. So here we have a diagram of what this setup is going to look like in your classroom. You see that we have our basket over here, or our waste paper basket. This is what we'll use to make the baskets. You're also going to have your 2-point and 3-point lines set up here. You should measure these out before you start the game in class. You're probably going to have to adjust these a little bit to the physical ability of your class. You don't want it to be too easy or too hard, so you might have to move those around. If you have a gracious janitor that will let you keep these up throughout the school year, definitely go for it, but ask first, because some janitors don't want you leaving the tape down between classes because it gets really stomped down onto the ground. So that's something you definitely want to communicate with your school before leaving there. On your whiteboard here, you're going to set up each team with a set of 10 X's. So here we have team 1, they've got their 10 X's, team 2, team 3, team 4, and so on. You can have up to 6 teams without it getting too tedious in your class if you've got a lot of students. With smaller classrooms, you might want to stick just to fewer teams. Your students will end up standing somewhere. It doesn't have to be right next to the board, because they're going to answer a question that you give them and write that answer or talk about that answer on the board first, and then shoot the basket to get points. So they only get to shoot a basket if they write the answer correctly. And what I like to do is have the class check the answer and weigh in whether or not the answer was correct. If they get it right, then they get to take a shot from the 2 or the 3-point line. They can choose which one they want to do. If they get the shot on the 2-point line, then they get to take 4 X's off the board total. They get to erase somebody else's X's. If they take the shot from the 3-point line and they get it in, then they get to take 5 X's off the board. So what could happen is, let's say the student answers a question correctly, they take a shot from the 2-point line, they're team 1, they're going to say, okay, we're going to erase 4 X's from team 2. And now team 2 is closer to losing the game. This will happen sometimes if they have a grudge against another team. If they dislike all teams equally, you might see that they take like 2 from team 3, 2 from team 2, or whatever. In classrooms where you have a pretty good culture, then you should let students form alliances and play up on their grudges, because it is Grudge Ball. That's part of what motivates students to the game. If you have a classroom that's a little bit less emotionally developed or is maybe a bit unfriendly, then you should be a little bit more strict in the way you run the game and have students just answer questions and just erase marks. The team that loses all of their X's is then considered to be out of the game, and the goal of the game is to kick everybody else out, to erase everybody else's X's. If you want to keep students engaged in the game even once they're out, you can encourage them to still answer questions or require them if need be. And then those students can get back into the game if they answer the question correctly. Um, they have to answer the question correctly and get a basket in though. Once they get the basket in, they can either get 4 X's added to their board or 5. They can't add the X's to any other team's game board. If this is still a little bit confusing for you, I invite you to try it out in your classroom just to kind of work through the rules. Also, take a look at the website because I think it really helps having the action shots of the kids playing the game.